Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast brought to you by Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning. I'm your coach, Kenny Warcourt. Today, I have the absolute honor of having Matt Curmi on to tell me just a fraction of what I'm assuming to be thousands of stories of his life. My gosh, you need to listen to this one, and we'll start a whole new podcast just to hear the remainder of Matt's stories. But yeah, listen in. It's very interesting, very good, and I think he's lived about 10 lifetimes in his short existence so far. Oh, we're in it now. So
crooked. Oh, well.
your crooked, your non-level thing in the background is going to be how people first get introduced to you, Matt Curmi. So you're the lack of. Maybe your chair's not level. I don't know. Maybe you're.
Yeah, maybe it's me. It's that Friday thing.
Matt Curmi is a handyman of all sorts, is how we're starting this. I hit go right as you were starting to adjust that, and now this is with us forever. So, yeah,
well, that's what I was trying to avoid. Oh well. Thanks for having me, Kenny.
This is great. I can cut this out, but I probably won't. So I think that's a good intro here. So yeah, thanks for doing this. This is like I said to you before the podcast, you have a very interesting background, I think, and I'm excited to share that with everybody else. So let's start with the normal thing, though. Let's talk how you started the gym, what that was like because I'll be honest with you, I don't remember that. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
So I started, I guess it was about a week after my 44th birthday. So it was 2020. So it was during the COVID times. I was locked up at home. I wasn't coming to the office anymore. I had two little kids at the time, so I was super busy with that, trying to focus on, getting their education stuff sorted out. But I was also trying to keep up with work. So one of the things that I do is I specifically sell into restaurants. So my entire everything just completely collapsed in 2020. So I had a lot of energy to burn, let's say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would have my sister or my sister-in-law Katie Bradish to thank for getting me into the gym.
She's another one. She'd be a great. I know she's not at the gym right now, but she would be a great podcast guest.
Actually, she's got a lot of good stories. She's very amusing to listen to. Yeah, she'd be a good one.
Yeah,
she kept telling me, she was going to your gym, and she kept telling me, I think you'd really like this. And at first I was like, no, absolutely not. I've seen what CrossFit is, and it looks wild to me. And like, as far as my background goes, Kenny, like I've never been a gym goer. I've not even been to any other gyms other than your gym. Like all I know about gym is Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning, right?
Wow.
So it took a lot of convincing for her to get me to go. And then
your
one day
first,
I said,
your last,
right,
your everything.
I'll do the trial, I'll do the PT with someone for a couple of days and see what I think. And I did, and I was very intimidated at first, I must say. I mean, I was completely out of shape,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize how out of shape I was until those first few workouts, I mean, and I like to say I try pretty hard at the gym, and I'll never be amazing at it, but I definitely try my hardest. And I tried my hardest from the beginning, and I suffered, man. I would really say I suffered. I've matured a lot in the gym lately, so I would say that I know how this level goes and how like sometimes you ramp up and sometimes you level off and sometimes you fall off a little bit. But in the beginning, I
Totally.
just wanted to do this the whole time, So I
Yeah.
suffered a little bit.
Yeah. Did you and I have this conversation the other morning about that? Like kind of the was that you and
We
me?
kind of
Yeah.
did, yeah. I was
Yeah.
referring
Yeah.
to another podcast you did with Aaron Varnwald, and he had mentioned something like that. And I
That's
was like,
right.
oh, yeah, that's kind of the realization that I've had over the last 12 months at the gym is I'm not constantly going to get better necessarily. If I feel like I'm not getting better, then just try and maintain. And then when you're feeling strong again, hit it again and try and come up a couple of notches. But this constant, like, steady climb for me is not realistic. I don't know about other people. I'm also a little bit older, so sometimes I look around the gym and I think, man, I used to be able to jump up and down like that. Now I look at my heart rate and be like, I gotta chill out a little bit, before I collapse.
You said a lot there, which is like the intimidation thing is the thing I want. I don't know. I think everybody goes through it, and regardless of fitness level, I say this honestly to everybody, when I walk into a different gym, if I go drop into a gym or something, I still get some of those butterflies of like, man, what if I suck the worst? And it's, so I think the point to take away is like, that's never something I need to be worried about, because the typical community in the gym in a setting like ours, like they all know how that feels. So they're usually really welcoming, usually really affable. Like they're all just kind of there to have fun too. And so there's really no point in feeling that way, but I do still get it. And I think regardless of where people are starting from, they still feel a little bit of like, ew, what if, I don't know, it's just weird.
That's
So it's
really
just a different,
actually
yeah.
That's great that you get that, Kenny, because that's what makes people feel more comfortable, you know?
Yeah,
There's times where like I just, I feel like I'm falling behind, I can't keep up, and then I look around and then I have a coach to tell me everything's going to be okay. It's just another day at the gym. It's just an hour, you know.
yeah,
Try your best or just try and get through it. And that has always been very comforting to me. I don't think at this stage of my life, if I was to get a gym membership and like be self-motivated and go lift weights or something every morning by myself, I don't think I'd try very hard, you know. I'd probably give up. I probably just wouldn't hit it as hard. I feel more accountable in a group.
totally.
So I feel more comfortable in a group, and I also I'm inspired by the group. There's people in there that like I want to be able to do that one day, you know, and I'm gonna chip away at it until I can get there. I'll never launch myself into it, like I was saying earlier, that it's all about that foundation, I think, and that's something the most important thing I've learned from you guys.
Well, thank you. And man, you are like hitting on my favorite talking point. So good job. You must have read my script that I didn't send you, but that's another one of those, like, I I'm the fitness guy, not to pump my own tires up, but I know everything there is to know about fitness. I've probably coached 15 hours of fitness. I do hard things on my own for fun, but if you leave me to my own devices, if I go try and work out in the gym at some off time because that's the only time I can get in, I absolutely suck. I do the most minimal amount of work. I'm on my phone screwing around trying to distract myself half the time. The effort I put in is probably like 60% of what I would have done in the group. And so I think that my point of acknowledging that is, I think that's everybody. And again, I'm probably the picture of what it should be, but I still require the social interaction and
Hmm.
accountability just by having other people around. And it's not a competitive thing, because I think people misconstrue that as well. Like, I'm not trying to win every day. It's just a little bit of like knowing other people. We're all going to push a little bit harder because I don't know. It just is more fun with the energy of the group.
It's more fun. If you're going to be there, you might as well do max effort. You know, that's kind of the way I look at it. Is give it your best shot.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, for someone that's never really been into athletics or going to the gym or anything, like, it's a full-on part of my life now. Like, it's a part of my
Yeah.
schedule. My kids know that by the time they wake up in the morning, I'll have already gone to the gym and I'll be back, you know? And there's a reason I go at that time. It's so that they can't stop me. Everyone's still in bed. They're not going to be able to stop me.
So true.
I, I have a bit of a chef background, so cooking and food is a big part of my life too. Really, really into it. So, at home, I'm the guy that prepares the meals. So it's very easy for them to say, "Don't go to the gym, Dad. Why don't you just cook us a steak or something?" Like that comes up quite a lot. My wife often calls me home early from work. Come home, make dinner. If you don't make dinner, we're not eating tonight.
That's me. I'm the opposite of you. Jen is my chef, and the same. If she doesn't come and make me dinner, we will have tacos for the 700th night in a row. And I don't mean like interesting tacos. I mean like we will grill. I will fry up some elk. I will put some cheese on there, and I will probably warm up some tortillas, and that's what we're gonna have. But if not, yeah, if Jen goes, then we're treated. So yeah,
My
you
wife
can.
has a saying, I would rather not eat than cook, which doesn't make sense to me. It's not a big deal.
I fall in that camp. I totally understand what she's talking about. Tell me more about that though, because that's what I am. There's a lot to that. What you just said about used to be a chef, and I think are you ever not a chef now? Do Did they take that away from
Yeah,
you?
no, not really. It actually goes back further than that. So I'll tell you the story. So I come from fairly nomadic tribes, let's say. My family's for generations has never really lived in their home country. I'm one of the few left right now. But like for example, my grandparents on my father's side, my grandfather was an ambassador to the country of Malta. I'm half Maltese and half British. So my grandfather was an ambassador to the country of Malta in Switzerland and in Spain. So my
Oh,
father growing up was always moving around. His father was a diplomat, My mother's parents ran a banana plantation in Africa for many years. They did the most amazing trip. I still have the map. I got it at home. My grandmother recently passed, and that was the one thing I wanted was this map, right?
yeah.
So back in the late 70s, my grandparents bought a VW bus in Southampton, England. They took a ferry across to France, and they drove that bus through Europe, through Siberia. They went into Afghanistan. They toured through India, and they drove back to England. And I've got this
Whoa,
map, right, with this crazy like zigzaggy circular line running around, and it was like a three-year journey.
that's
And the
amazing.
best part about that story is my grandmother always said the highlight of her trip was camping in Afghanistan. Can't say that anymore, I don't think.
I don't,
Right?
I mean, I think
How
there's a
times have
different, yeah.
changed.
Yeah. You're probably wearing a uniform if you're camping in Afghanistan at this point. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Not camping in style, man. Not at all.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's different. That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
So that's my grandparents. So that kind of passed on to my parents too. So I was born in Scotland. My father worked on offshore oil rigs in the Outer Hebrides in northern Scotland. So I was born in a small village, Drumlithie, on the east side of Scotland. Shortly after, my father got a job in Bombay, and he worked out in Bombay in India for several years. But he commuted, and before he got this job, he took a couple of years off, and we lived in a VW bus, just like my grandparents did. And we took that VW bus from Portsmouth, England, to uh, to Montreal, Canada, and we visited every Canadian state, every American state, and every Mexican state in a 2.5 year period. And then back to England, and then my dad got the job in Bombay, but he had had enough of working on oil rigs one day. He came home from work and he said, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not going back to the oil rigs. Saw like 5 people die, last
Yeah.
week, food poisoning, all sorts of stuff. He had terrible injuries. And we were living in Maine at the time. We only lived there for about 6 months. So he came home one day and he said, I'm done. I'm selling the house. We're going to live on a sailboat. And he bought this sailboat in Beaufort, South Carolina, and we ended up living on it for 11 years. We
Oh my
sailed over
gosh.
26,000 miles. We crossed the Atlantic 3 times. We lived on the boat in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos Islands, Puerto Rico. We sailed across to the Isle of Man, which is a little island in between England and Ireland, where my father still lives. I was just there a couple of months ago. Um, we sailed to Spain. We lived in Spain for several years. I went to school there for 2 years. Um, then we sailed across the Atlantic again to Florida. My parents ended up buying a house in Tennessee. I did my first 2 years of high school in Tennessee. So England to Spain to Tennessee. And then one day my dad and I got on the boat, just the two of us, and we sailed to Malta, which is a little country just south of Sicily. So my parents used to do this, Kenny, and used to drive me crazy as a teenager and a kid. My sister and I would come home from school. My parents would have a hat on the table. The hat would have pieces of paper on it with the names of countries in it, and we would all draw a name. And the
Oh my
country that got
gosh.
got the most pulls was the country that we would sail to and we would live in. And we did that for 6 or 7 years, just picking the tickets and going to different places. But on that particular one, my mother said, "I'm out. I'm crossing the Atlantic again." I mean, living on a boat is it's fun, it's adventurous, but it's like living in an RV, really, like
Yeah.
feeding yourself, sleeping is hard. I used to suffer from motion sickness pretty badly, very badly, in fact. So my mom said, I'm out, I'm not doing it. I'm taking the kids, we'll meet you in Malta. Um, but it's a good 5,000 mile journey on a sailboat, which doesn't go more than like 4 or 5 miles an hour, right? This is a long trip.
Right. Right.
So I said, I'm going to go with dad, we're going to go together. So we went down to South Carolina, we got on this boat, We started sailing towards the Azores, which is a little group of islands just east of Portugal, still Portuguese islands, volcanic. And we were about a week into the journey, and my dad did something to his back. We were moving an anchor, and we hit a riptide, and the boat just kind of dropped several feet, and we both fell on the deck. And my dad hurt his back, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't walk. He couldn't move around. So he just lay down in the aft cabin with his legs elevated, and he just. I was 16 years old. He told me what to do. He told me where the food was to cook. He told me how to read the maps. He told me how to navigate. He told me how to pull the sails, operate the radio, all these. He just gave me the directions. And I was so busy working. And I still don't, I never got motion sickness again. It's all in the head. And that was a big realization for me is, man, all those years of suffering, I was really just feeling sorry for myself, you know? So I was so busy and I just cured myself of seasickness. Anyway, my father and I, we finished the journey. We got to the Azores. We sailed on to Spain. Another funny sailing story, if you're interested, Kenny, while we have the
Yeah, okay,
time.
I'm
So,
yes. Take this every there's so many direct. Yeah, please.
okay,
I'm just here
so
as a wrap. Yeah,
we were trying to get from the Azores to Gibraltar, which is probably about a 2 week sail. My dad said, when we get to the Straits of Gibraltar, wake me up. I'm going to direct you through so we can go and get into the anchorage in Gibraltar. Because it's a very narrow channel that goes between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, right? They have shipping
yeah,
lanes because there's so much traffic coming through there. The African side and the Spanish side are only like 3 or 4 miles apart, which isn't much when you're on the ocean with big
sure.
tankers and stuff running through there. So we
Yeah.
get to the Straits. I go check on my dad. He's fast asleep. He's injured. So I say, you know what? I got this. I can sail the boat into Gibraltar. Um, Turns out I was wrong. I went down the wrong side of the Straits of Gibraltar. I mean, I'm a 16-year-old kid. I didn't know
Sure.
squat, man.
Right.
Um,
Well,
I wake my dad. It's nighttime, right? There's big, huge tankers, 150-foot tankers coming at us from all different directions. We're a tiny little sailboat. No one can see us. We got
yeah.
lights on, but we are tiny in comparison.
How big is the boat?
Anyway,
Sorry. How big is the boat we're talking about? Is this the same boat you
40
were on the
feet.
whole time? 40
It
feet?
was a 40-foot steel boat,
Okay.
ketch rigged, which means it has two masts. It was built in 1942 in Germany out of the scrap metal from a cargo ship. It was a very, very tough boat. It was called Aeolus, which is, if you know anything about Greek mythology, Aeolus was the Greek god of the wind who gave Odysseus, the bag of wind that sent him off on his adventure. So that was the name of the boat, the god of the
That's
wind.
awesome.
It's a good name
Sorry to
for the
interrupt, but
boat.
that's now visually I got a better image of what's going down as you're trying not to get run over by
Oh
ships.
man. So I just wake up my dad and I say, Dad, not sure which is Africa, I'm not sure which is Europe. It's dark, lights, like I can't. This was before the times of GPS, right? So there's no
Yeah.
map plotting. So we're just
IMAPS
looking at
wasn't
a map.
helping.
So you can look at a map, but technically, if you haven't been tracking it, you really don't know where you are, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Anyway, long story short, got to spend a couple of nights in Morocco that night. We never made it to Gibraltar. We just stopped on the other side.
Oh
Uh,
my
and then, and then
gosh.
we carried on to Spain. We spent some time in Mallorca where I had buddies there. I went to school there several years before, so that was fun being there. And then
Yeah.
up to Malta. And then 2 days later, I started my junior year of high school. Probably in a bit of a mess, grubby boat kid, but yeah, that's the sailing story. So I still sail, but I sail on Lake Ponderey now. And I go off on adventures every now and then, but most of my sailing adventures happened before the age of 18.
How did that like? First of all, I kept waiting for you to say your dad faked his injury. Like I was like, I thought he was at one point gonna just stand up and be like, "Yeah, told you, you were fine. Like you got this. This was your rite of passage as a man. Now you're not seasick, and now you can do the thing."
No, I wish.
No,
No, he
he
was
was
no
legit.
help to me
Okay,
at all.
okay.
My dad would never fake an injury. My dad is a very tough, rugged Maltese Mediterranean guy. Like I have childhood memories of him of just taking pain and abuse and taking. I mean, it was there was some dangerous times out there. My ninth birthday, I remember we were in the Turks and Caicos Islands, Grand Turk. There was a hurricane. We went through the eyes of two hurricanes on that boat, but we went through the eye of a hurricane on my ninth birthday. And I remember, okay, so several sailboats in the harbor. Everyone's abandoning ship, right? Everyone's in their
Yeah.
dinghies rowing ashore, trying to get onto the land. But then the Curmi family is doing quite the opposite. We're rowing out to our boat as the storm is hitting in the dinghy that we nicknamed the Norwood Charger. It was basically a kid's beach toy, but we had all the family in there with the groceries. My dad's got these like plastic oars, and we're going out there, and people are waving us to go into the land. And we went out to the boat, and my dad puts on his snorkel and goggles and flippers, and he dives down under the boat. There's an old shipwreck down there, and there was a big anchor left over from the shipwreck. So he ties our boat off to this anchor. And I have a memory of my sister, my mother, and I standing on the back of the boat, and we're looking down, and we see my dad go down. I mean, and the boat's doing this, right? It's coming up and down, and the boat comes up out of the water, and I see my dad hanging onto this chain on the back, and the boat comes down on top of him, and he comes up, and he's got blood coming out of his head, and he just dives back down again. He shackles this thing up and he climbs back aboard, puts us down below, and weathers the storm by himself on deck. Like, and he did that that night. And the other hurricane, we were actually at sea when it happened, so we were out off the out of the Chesapeake Bay, and we went right through the eye of a hurricane. There was a big famous ship called the Stefan Batory that sank that night. Um, so we come plodding in the morning into Baltimore. There's a news team waiting for us. We're like the only boat that came out of the darkness in the morning, you know. And one of our masts was broken. Our bowsprit had split. It was a rough night for me. I was suffering. I had a whooping cough, which you get vaccinated against these days, but I didn't have that vaccine at the time, and so I was suffering from terrible seasickness and this I couldn't breathe properly, you know, like I was only maybe 6 or 7 years old, but I remember that night clearly. It was pretty freaky. But the cough was what bothered me and being uncomfortable. I was never scared about being on a boat on the ocean in the middle of a hurricane. And the middle of a hurricane
Huh.
is quite interesting because it's this big swirling wind, right? It's
Yeah.
really tumultuous winds and waves, but in the very center, it's dead still.
Yeah.
You can see the
Yeah.
stars. It's quiet, water's flat, and you have 20 minutes or so to get it together and prepare for the second wave, you know, the second onslaught of the hurricane. So that was an interesting thing to go through the middle of a hurricane. Never seen that before.
Yeah.
Hopefully never again.
There's how many? I feel like you've lived like 10 lives and like just on the sailboat. Like just you had all these experiences that people would like every one of those would be like a life altering event that somebody would be holding court telling, their kids and kids about. Remember the time we did. So yeah, you've got
You know, and
that's
sometimes, Kenny, I talk too much because they just keep coming. There's just so many of them.
no, it's
But then
amazing.
sometimes I was talking to my wife the other day, you know, I was like, been living in Sandpoint now for about 13 years. My wife's from Sandpoint. That's how I ended up here. But like, I grew up moving constantly, right?
Yeah.
Having adventures and always on the move. And like, I'm watching my kids growing up in small town Idaho, which is great. It's a great place for a kid to grow up. I always wonder, like, I like that I have these stories, you know? I want them to have some
Taken
stories
through a
too. So
hurricane.
how can I make that happen?
Yeah.
When I suggest to my wife we go sailing on the ocean, she says, I like plumbing too much. I'm out.
That's fair.
Which is a very
Okay.
good
Yeah.
point. Plumbing
Yeah.
sucks on a boat. The water's always cold. You're always covered in salt, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I
So,
mean, I see both sides for sure. And there's a, man, this is such a tricky thing to navigate through, but like the softness of society, like things are pretty easy. And I don't mean that
mhm.
like that's everyone's got problems. I don't want to like diminish any of that, but life is pretty easy in comparison to what it could be. And I think some of those,
Comfortable.
yeah, comfortable. Yeah, maybe not easy. Correct. But those experiences are so good for people to get through the other side with, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of there is usually another side. I mean, you could perish in some catastrophe, but
Yeah.
I think there's a good lesson there to realize that hard things don't last forever. And you can, sometimes you just got to deal. This is such a minute story compared to yours, but we got caught in a storm just like that happened a week ago on Ponder. We were out boat camping, and it was like the boats basically sank. Everything blew away. It was like this crazy. But I was like, well, we're out here. Like, we got to figure this out. And I was telling our son about it. He was not on the trip with us. I was like, dude, sometimes you just got to figure it out. Like, there's no emerg. There's no easy button. There's no, you don't get to pull the ripcord. You just got to get through it. And I think those are, to a degree, really valuable things to try and understand and navigate through the rest of your life. Where the line is, I don't know, because whether you make your kids sleep outside for a couple weeks and teach them how important it is to have an insulated home and a roof over their head, like that's probably too much. But there's a degree to which it's important. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the most important factors about anything like that, Kenny, is staying calm. Stay calm.
totally,
You know, you're okay. I had an adventure last spring actually on my boat. I was sailing up from Bayview to Sandpoint by myself. I've been doing it every year for 8 years, you know. I bring my boat up, I bring it back down in the fall. But on this particular occasion, I was trying to get to Sandpoint before a thunderstorm hit. I was sailing by
yeah,
myself. I left Bayview at like 6 in the morning. The thunderstorm was, scheduled to hit, late afternoon. So I thought I had plenty of time. The wind was really ripping, so I thought I was going to make it easily. And I was making great time. But I tacked my boat. So I turned into the wind and I turned away from it. And when I did, my sail completely detached from my mast and just blew off to the side. So it's attached on the very top of the mast and along the boom. So it's basically it's like a balloon hanging off the side of my boat. Like I couldn't steer, I
yeah,
couldn't do anything. And it was
yep,
still pretty dark out. It was I'd say April or May, so there's no one out there, The water was cold. You don't want to go in there. So I tack back to get pointed into the wind so I can drop my sail. My other sail gets caught on my mast, on my spreader, and just shreds itself. So
oh,
there,
cool,
within 30 seconds, I've lost both my sails. So I fire up my engine, and then I realize I have a line in the water. My prop gets tangled up. So I'm just like completely disabled. The boat's leaning over like this. It's flying sideways. And I started to panic. I grabbed my radio. I was like, oh shit, like, I need to call the sheriff. And then I was
yeah,
like, you know what? Stay calm. The boat's not
yep,
sinking. That's the main thing. The way the wind is blowing, I probably got about 3 hours before I hit Green Bay. Maybe I got some time to patch myself. So I dig around down below, try to find a needle and thread. I don't. I ended up pulling my engine out of the water, jumping in there and untangling it and getting back to Bayview and just abandoning the trip altogether. But after, and I was freaked out, man. I went home and had like a 4 hour nap. I was so stressed out by the whole thing. Like I felt like I was potentially going to wreck my boat on the rocks that day. Um,
yep,
but then afterwards, I thought about it and I thought, wow, I really did a good job of staying calm. Like I never panicked. I was
yep,
always like, all right, what's the next thing I can do to fix this so I can get out of this situation? I'm by myself. Calling someone's not going to do anything. I could call the sheriff, but he's probably going to take a couple of hours. Like, I don't want to be in
yep.
the newspaper either, so I'm going to figure this out. You know. So
Yeah.
that's the key to life in general, Kenny, is just to stay calm. How do you get through it? It's not over yet. That's my philosophy.
No, I think that's so. I'm a big outdoors person. I camp and hunt, and I do most of it alone. And
Hmm.
there's drawbacks to it, but at the point of what you're getting at, and I 100% agree, is like the self reliance thing of like I gotta figure it out. I don't know. Like this is my only option, and you panic one time. You learn that lesson that when you start to just rapid fire make bad decisions, you can end up in trouble really fast. And that staying calm thing of like, okay, well, what's the next most logical thing to do? Which is hard. It's hard to keep that composure. That's a skill I think you develop. But man, you'll survive if you do that. If you go crazy and just run off into the woods, like, because people get lost and they just start just running.
Right,
You're
and then
probably
you're
not going
really
to.
lost.
Yeah, then you're really screwed. So, and that's it. Doing some of the stuff we've learned about in search and rescue and some backcountry first aid stuff. Like the mistakes people make are not. It's not that they died from exposure; that they just went bananas and tried to do something stupid.
Yeah,
So, anyways, yeah, I think that's a man. You learn a lot of good lessons, I'm sure, growing up in that way.
I've learned
Do
to
you
be
have any
calm
of
and
that?
deliberate.
Yeah, for sure. So your dad sounds like I don't know what the right stubborn, tough. How has that?
Yeah, he was very tough. He was also, so like I told you, his dad was a diplomat and he was an ambassador. He was pretty high up in the government. He was also the vice president of Esso Oil in North Africa for many years. Like he was very accomplished. My
Yeah.
dad went quite the opposite direction. He, he finished school and he bought a motorcycle in Australia and he rode across the country of Australia on like a 120cc dirt bike or something. And he worked in copper mines to buy gas so he could chip his way across the country. And then he went back
That's
to England and then he got married and he bought this bus and went traveling and he just my dad he did things differently than the rest of his family did and I always admired that and I kind of did the same thing, like I'm the only one that ever really came over to the States and stayed here and in 2008 I somehow got a work visa and I just grabbed my backpack and I left England. I had my dog and my backpack and that was it and I flew into LA and I rented a car and I started driving. And I eventually hit Coeur d'Alene, and I thought, what a beautiful place. I was a chef, so I just walked down the street and handed out my resume. I got a job, and man, here I am. I met
that's
my wife a couple of years later, and I just never went back.
but also such a good. I think so many people are. I grew up in Southern California, which is, I might have edit that out at some point, but there's so many people who they get locked in. They've never left Orange County, and they're like, I don't know.
I know,
But I
I
think
know.
that the adventure of just showing up at a new place and figuring it out, I think it's such a good. I don't know. I think it's a good lesson. Maybe you stay,
It
maybe you
is.
don't, but
It
it's
is,
you'll
and
figure it
I
out.
do have that. I do have that desire to maybe do that again one day. I'm going to raise my kids here in Sandpoint, and I'm going to get them off to a good start. But once they don't need me to shelter them anymore, like I'm probably going to take off again. There's a lot of world to see out there. I haven't seen it all, and I don't necessarily want to see it from a hotel room. You know?
Yeah, totally. Same. 100%. Again, I'm on board with the plumbing thing, but at the same time, there's nothing that I get more annoyed with. Not, I'm sure there's plenty of things I get more annoyed with, but I cannot stand going to another country and feeling like I'm in a museum or a zoo or a tour, where
It's
I'm just like,
fabricated.
yeah, there's the thing. Okay, well, now we're going to go to the next thing. Hop back on the bus where we read you about. I want to like immerse myself and feel like I'm a part of the community. Even if I don't speak the language, it's such a that's so exciting to me and so invigorating to me to feel like, okay, cool. Like this is I might not be one of them, but I'm trying to feel like one of them, and I can experience what their
Right?
life's
Yeah,
like. Not
immerse
the
yourself in the culture.
yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure.
I mean, you were in Paris earlier this year, isn't that right?
I was not. Jen was. Jen was with her
Oh,
sister. We were in Barcelona and Mallorca
okay, that's right. Oh
together.
yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot you went to Mallorca. Yeah. So
yeah.
so after college, I actually went back to Mallorca. I love Mallorca so much. It's really one of my favorite places. But yeah, when I was around 24, I moved there, and that's where I did my chef training. Actually, I worked for a German chef in Spain, and that's where I learned most of what I know about cooking was from that guy.
Got it.
I
So
really
yeah, tell
enjoyed
me
it
about
over
that
there.
path because there's a lot there too with the chef side of things. So you were
Yeah, so I always had my grandfather, one of my grandfathers was he was the first person to open a motel in the UK. And you can't say much about motels these days. It wasn't like a Motel 6. It was fancy, right?
right.
It was in London. It was fancy. Like London's a big, busy city, so to have the footprint to put a motel on was a big deal. And he had this very fancy restaurant there called Veglia's. And I was just always fascinated by it. And he really wanted to get me into cooking, and he taught me a few things. And then, I finished high school. I worked in a restaurant for a little while, and then I was like, man, I really need to I should go to college. Like I can't, this isn't it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually went to college in Arizona, in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I just wanted to go somewhere completely new that I'd never been before. So I left Malta.
You hadn't done that your whole
Um,
life at this point.
I know exactly. So like just go somewhere new, yeah. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it there.
Yeah, I bet.
And
Yeah.
I picked up hotel and restaurant management as my major. Um, I thought I wanted to be like I wanted to get into the hospitality industry. But after I graduated, I really got into cooking. I mean, I'm talking obsessed with food and cooking. I was really, really into it. I only read cookbooks. I only talked about food. I only wanted to be at work, you know. I got really
Yeah.
into it. But then I went to visit this is a funny story. I went to visit my advisor, my college advisor, about graduating, and he said, "Well, you're close to graduating, but you looks like you skipped out on your culinary class and you never attended it." Uh, And I was being a dumb college kid. I didn't look at my schedule, and I just skipped the class the whole year. So this guy, he goes, "I'm going to send you the chef, and we'll see if we can figure something out." So I go to the chef, and he says, "Look, if you work in my kitchen for the summer, and I think you do a good job, I will give you the credits, and you can graduate." And I was like, "Oh man, I gotta do a good job here. I can't let this silly mistake stop me from graduating college. I've been living over here for 4 years. So I went and worked with this guy, and I loved it, and I just got really, really into it. But I also felt like I'd missed out a bit. So now I'm
Yeah.
23 years old, and I don't really have any chef training, but I wanted to be a chef so bad. So I said, right, I'm going to travel and I'm going to work for the best chefs that I can find in different countries. I'm going to learn as much about those cuisines from those countries as I can. And then when I feel like I've done enough, I'm going to put it all together and I'm going to be my own chef and I'm going to have my own style. And that's exactly what I did. So I drove from
Dude.
Arizona to Maine. I worked at a seafood restaurant as a sous chef, and I worked in a bakery early in the mornings. So I learned how to bake. I learned a ton about seafood. And I got on a plane and I flew to Mallorca and I worked for this German chef. And I cooked mostly for British and Irish tourists, cooking Spanish food under a German chef. So I learned a lot about British food, Spanish food, and German. And then a couple of years of that, all right, I'm going to go to England and learn more about British food. So I went over to England. I worked in a pub for a while. I ended up working in a three Michelin-star restaurant for a little while, which is, I don't know if you know anything about Michelin stars, but 3 stars is the highest you can get. It's
Yeah.
the biggest accolade any restaurant can get. In fact, this restaurant I worked at was, when I was there, it was rated number two, but several years prior, it was rated as the best restaurant in the world. It's called the Fat
Oh my
Duck,
gosh.
just outside of London. And so I learned a ton about food. I learned a lot about the hierarchy of kitchens. I learned that I didn't like to be yelled at in French all day. So I gave it a good shot, but I decided I was out. I was out on Michelin star. And then I worked in a Thai restaurant for several years while I was trying to get this US visa, right? Which took a long time. It was probably the biggest hurdle task of my life was trying to get this temporary work visa so I could come back to the States. I had such a good time in college. I
Yeah.
just wanted to come back over here. So I worked at this restaurant for 4 years, just working on the woks, cooking stir fries, making noodle dishes. I learned a ton
Oh
about
my
Asian
gosh.
food, but it got pretty stale after a while. And then I ended up in Coeur d'Alene, and I took all these experiences and all these cuisines and techniques that I'd learned over the years, and I put them all together. And without bragging, I was hot shit in Coeur d'Alene for a few years there, man. Like the restaurant I worked at was very, very popular. I just did things that the other local chefs had never heard of before. It was different. It was a different kind of cooking. So it was very popular. Um, and then,
Oh my
I head chef.
gosh.
My last head chef job was at 41 South there on the other side of the bridge before it closed down, maybe 3 or 4 years before it closed down. And then my
What
first
year
kid
was
came
that?
along, and I
Oh, it was
said,
probably
man,
before me because I
yeah,
worked there in
maybe it's
2013, 12, 2014,
Oh
bartending.
yeah, I
Anyway.
was there probably oh man, right after 15 or 16. Yeah,
Oh,
that must have been right. So Jake was probably the chef when you were
yes.
there, is that right? Yeah,
Correct.
so
Yep.
I was the chef after him. I came in
Got it.
after him. Anyway, I'm done with restaurants. I can't do this anymore. I gotta get away. I'm about to have my first child. Like, I can't be working weekends,
It's
evenings. I need
hard.
to see my wife and my
Yeah.
kids. So I got
Yeah.
a job as a corporate chef for Cisco Foods. You've probably seen the trucks driving around. So I
Yep.
was their corporate chef for a couple of years, which was great. It got me out of restaurants. I finally had a nine
Yeah.
to five after 22 years of cooking. I was
Yep.
stoked on it. I got some benefits and stuff, and the pay was way better. And I just
Yep.
never went back to restaurants. So,
Yeah.
funnily enough, now I sell barbecue wood. I'm an English barbecue guy, and I'm in sales, and I love it. With my chef experience, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I
Yeah.
sell wood. But I'm still
Oh my
obsessed with
gosh.
cooking, still absolutely love it. Um, every now and then my wife asks me if I miss restaurants, and I do. I miss the adrenaline. Like,
Yeah.
man, I used to just
Yep.
love to just throw on some fast punk music and just like cook as fast as I could and just feed everybody at once. I was a tornado in the kitchen, man. I really loved
Yeah.
it. And the adrenaline was a big part of it for me. Like, I love just like, seeing people coming into the restaurant and like, all right, how fast can we get this food out? I used to love it, but man, too old for that stuff
That's
now.
oh,
I don't think I could hang.
you're
And there's a
you're the
lifestyle
most
that comes with
interesting person.
restaurants too. It's not a
Yeah.
healthy lifestyle, you know?
No, that's what
It's
I was
not.
gonna say. You don't smoke cigarettes. You don't have ironic tattoos all over your forearm, so you're not quite fitting them. What I figured, for most
A
chefs.
few tattoos. I've always been into the tattoos. I did smoke cigarettes for a long time, you know? I probably drank too much. I partied all the time, man. I get out of work at
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night with my
Yep.
coworkers and we haven't had a day yet. Let's go do something,
Totally.
you know? So that's
Yep.
why the gym has been such a big part for me because I was not living a healthy lifestyle. I was so focused on being the best chef that I could be. Because really, to be a great chef, you pretty much have to just blow everything off in your life and just do that. It's not healthy.
Hmm.
Chefs have a very short lifespan. You know, to be honest, the pay is not really worth
Yeah.
the short life, you know,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
anything. So,
Yeah.
but
No, do you? This is such a stupid. But do you watch? Have you ever watched The Bear?
I have, yeah.
That's the
Yeah, I
only.
love that
That's the
stuff.
only
And they've
insight I
got
have, other than working in restaurants and being, bartending and serving and doing everything else. That's my only like. That's the only window I have into what all the things you just talked about. So
yeah, and it's quite accurate. That show's quite
is it?
accurate. There's stress, there's chaos, there's unreliability with employees, there's purveyor problems
Yeah.
where you don't get the food that you said you were going to cook in an hour. There's all sorts of stress, man. They say that chefing is one of the most stressful jobs you can get,
Yeah.
which isn't
I
fair
bet.
because it's certainly not one of the highest paying. It's not great.
Yeah. Right. Well, but you're right. I mean, so I worked in nightclubs for, I don't know, 6 years in Santa Barbara, and like
Oh, yeah, so
yeah,
you
I'd
know.
get off at 2, 3, and that was the beginning of our. We'd stay up, we drink and hang out until sunrise or later, and then go back to work at 8, 7, 8 p.m. It was a bizarre.
You
Jen and
can't
I
do
were
that.
dating. You can't do that as a family. You can't. I mean, you can. It's just
No,
probably not ideal.
not gonna
So
last.
no, I don't think so. It's a. I don't. I never got to any sort of level like you're describing, but the experience was it was a great thing to do for a period of time. But again, your
Mm,
passion, all that that's a very different. That sounds I don't know. That sounds very passion driven and exciting,
it was my
and
thing.
it's
Yeah,
yeah,
it
that's
was my
so
thing for
cool.
sure.
That is so cool, man. You're the most interesting
Yeah,
person I
so
think I've ever known. And you're only
that's true, Kenny. But
dude, you, we're 41 minutes into this thing, and I think I could probably sit here for another 7.5 hours and just barely have scratched the surface on like 90% of the things you talked about.
I
So
know, and unfortunately, I can just keep talking too.
I love it. No,
I
no,
get
no.
on a
That's not
roll.
a. That's more so like I was the acknowledgement of, man, I can't. The fact that you've done all these incredible things. That is so. That's just cool. Again, that was the reason I wanted to have you on. We're not done, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that like you've got some story and
Yeah,
some life
thanks
and
for
some stuff.
recognizing that I might have some stories, Kenny. I do. I have lots. And you know what? Like it's not over yet. I got a lot more to do.
Yeah.
Like I wanna get out there again and do some more, you know. I've been kind of parked. My kids are young right now and we take them on adventures. We go to other countries still, but it's more systemized now, you know. We're staying in hotels and we're flying on planes and we're taking buses, you know. Not quite the same as what my family did growing up, but I don't know how realistic that would be in this day and age. I don't know. I know people do it out there. There's big fancy boats and people have lots of money and they can put tons of equipment on there, but like the boat that I grew up on, we didn't even have electricity. We had oil paraffin lamps. We had a kerosene stove, you know. My bed was a water tank. I slept on a water tank for 10 years.
Oh my gosh. How inclined are you to try and facilitate something like that for your kid? Like in just again, probably a different capacity, but how much of your I went down this road earlier, but like your dad's influence, his dad's influence on him, and his your dad's influence on you, like which direction? Where do you feel like you're falling in the like toughness, that kind of realm in terms of your parenting style?
I don't know if yeah, so my parenting style, I want my kids to see as much of the world as possible. Or I want to show them as
Hmm.
much as I can until they're at a point where they can make the decisions whether they want to get out there and do it themselves.
Yeah,
I don't really want to influence them in how to do their lives, how to run their lives, but I want to get them off to a good start so that they make the right decisions and they don't just, you know, they don't start into the norms of society straight away, like out of school. I want them to go off on an adventure, take a couple of years, look at a bit of the world, then come back and then decide, is that for you or is this for you? You know, I want them to give them that, I want them to have that freedom. My parents did that with me. I didn't go as extreme as my parents did. But I don't know if that is something that is as doable in this day and age. I mean, when we started our adventures, it was, late 70s. Like the world's changed a lot since then.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think it's more accepted in a way to, because with the way I was raised in the generation before me, it was like, you went to school, then you went to college, and then you got a job, and you stayed at that job until you retired. You may do one or two shifts, but it's not much, and then your retirement is hoping you have grandkids and living in the gated community and playing golf all the time. I don't feel like that's the case anymore. I feel like that's been a pretty, in my opinion, positive shift where there's more gap years, there's more adventure, there's more thought process behind why you're going to school, there's more intentionality behind career choices, and there's less pressure to stay in one thing. That was my experience, and I'm hoping that's the case. So I think there's more
Yeah.
flexibility in the way you're able to proceed through life. But yeah, it is definitely like you said before. You're not going backpacking through Afghanistan.
No, no, there's plenty of other places to go.
Yeah, that's true. So what's on your? You mentioned, I think that we talk about like phases of life, and it sounds like there's some big adventures you want to have post when the kids are out of the house.
Mhm.
What is that? What do you have anything on your list, or are you just like thinking about the idea?
Yeah, I guess we're thinking about the idea, but my wife and I have also heavily discussed the idea of living in Europe part
Mm,
time.
yep.
I think we'll always have a home base here in Sandpoint, but like all my family's over there. I really love Spain so much. Like I do want to live there again one day. Um, we'll see. One of the good things about Spain is it's very affordable. You know, and I'm a British citizen as well as a US citizen now. And unfortunately, Britain has left the EU. So
Yep.
I don't have that option to live and work in Europe anymore. But my father's Maltese, so I'm actually currently in the process of trying to get my Maltese citizenship. And if that works out, I'll be able to get it for my kids too, and potentially my wife, she's absolutely over the moon about, right? If she can
Yeah.
become a European citizen. So I'm actually headed off to DC in a couple of months for my interview at the Maltese embassy, and should be okay. I mean, I've had to gather documents like birth certificates for my great great grandparents,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I've got everything. I actually have everything, and these Maltese birth certificates and marriage certificates and stuff. I had to prove that my father was a Maltese citizen when I was born, and he amazingly sent me his passport from 1976.
No way.
So it's like it's all coming together, you know?
That's so cool. Man,
Yeah. So ultimately,
this
I'd like to live part time somewhere, um, just immerse myself in the European culture. I love it in America. I love the States. I love this area particularly very, very much. Like it's
yep.
beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. It's a place of its own.
Yeah.
But I do have an attachment to Europe. That's where I'm from, and I love the culture over there, and I love the food, man. Spanish food just blows my mind.
Yeah, I uh for whatever reason I had not been to Europe until 2021 or 22, and that was
You
my
went to
first experience.
Barcelona.
I went to Sweden. I
Ah,
presented at a conference in Sweden, and then we went to Mallorca, and then so that was my first, and then but just traveling through. Oh, and then we went to London for like we tried to do a 24-hour tour of London, which is probably
wow,
not the
that's
most efficient way to see
impossible.
London, but yeah, exactly right, exactly. But the exposure and experience and the cultures and being on a train and hearing 7 different languages over the course
Right.
of an hour, like that was such a we've done some traveling, mostly in North America and on this hemisphere, but that was cool, and I think that was
Mm.
so neat. Garrison went with us last time to Barcelona, and that experience for him just be like, dude, there's a lot. North Idaho is amazing, but there's a
Mhm.
lot more to the world, and there's a lot more to culture. There's a lot of different foods, and there's a million different things to go and experience that is just it's just different. I'm not sure it's
That's
better
so
or worse.
important for him, Kenny. That's so important for him. I feel the same way for my kids. Like like I said, I love it here. I think it's amazing. It's an incredible place to be. It's a very safe place to be for the kids, but it's not it's very, it's a small pocket of the world. There's a lot more to see, and I just want them to know that that's out there so that when they come of age, they can go experience more of it if they want to, you know?
Totally. And to be, I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but Americans, we're pretty arrogant. Like we think we've got it all figured out. And the point of that though is what I cannot stand. Same thing I said with like I don't like to go ride the bus and see the things. Is that the assumption when an American goes to we go to Mexico quite a bit, and the American who's like upset that they're not speaking English, which I've seen many times, they're mad. I'm like, whoa, like this is so Garrison, for an example, we said, hey, when we go to Mexico, we go to Spain, like you need to learn. I'm not expecting you to become fluent. That's very challenging. But to just try, like understand there's different cultural norms, there's a different language, there's different things that you're gonna need to like meld to their style, their language, their culture,
Mm-hmm.
and just get that that's how it goes and just write it out. I don't know. They don't eat dinner until 11 p.m. That's different, but that's okay. Like,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you have just a few words in your pocket, please, thank you, hello, those are
For
all
sure.
things that break the ice. People are willing to work with you after that. Most people do speak some English over there, but if they want to know that you're willing to bend a little bit to their culture. That's absolutely understandable. That's exactly how we feel here too, So
Yeah.
it's a global thing.
Yeah. And that's a lesson I wish I would have learned earlier. I tried to learn Spanish I learned it in high school, but I forgot all like everybody else. And I started learning it again 8 or 9 years ago, and it was so scary to try and embark upon a new language experience with somebody else, knowing I'm going to be so dumb and so inept. But that's okay. Like nobody's upset with you trying. They may just jump. Most of my experiences, they jump right into English. They're like, yeah, no, my English is a million times better than your Spanish. Let's just do that. But the point is, nobody's upset with you trying.
No,
I think they're
exactly.
more upset if you don't bother. So
Absolutely, yeah. They'll work with you more. They'll see you more as a person that needs help or needs to communicate, and they will play along with you.
totally. And that acceptance I find gets you a long way in the experiences that I long for in those other cultures where I think you get the little back channels and the secrets and
Hmm.
the things that you will never see if you just again kind of follow the tourist map and stay in the safe zones.
That's absolutely
If you
right.
go down the alley and find the the thing that you're just gonna have to wing it.
Hmm.
I'll never forget some of those experiences that we have had because we just took the beaten path or the less beaten path.
The less
It was
beaten
awesome.
path. Yeah, that's what we do when we travel too, Kenny. We tend not to get in Ubers. We tend not to get in line to look at the tourist attractions. We go to the tourist attractions, we look at them, we take pictures, and then we move on. And we like to just walk until we get tired, and then we'll have some of the local cuisine, a cup of
Yep.
coffee, glass of wine, something like that. Just like really
Yep.
like, experience something local. And then when we're feeling rejuvenated, we start walking again. And that's how the Kermit family travels.
I love it. That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
it's great. And the kids, and it's good for the kids too. You see what's going on around you. You're not just going from, you know, highlight spot to highlight spot. You're walking in between them and you meet people, you see stuff, you try stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way
Exactly.
to do it. It's the way to really experience another place, I think.
Totally agree. And I think so many people are, especially Mexico. We go to Mexico quite a bit. Like, oh man, it's dangerous. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, certainly there are parts of Mexico that should probably not venture
Yep.
to, but Cabo San Lucas and the surrounding, you're gonna be fine. Like, and again, I think that hesitancy and fear, regardless of whether it's Mexico or another country, like, yeah, but you could make a wrong turn in downtown Spokane and be in a pretty sketchy
Right.
part of town. Like, so
Exactly.
whatever. I
I
don't
always
know.
think that there's sketchier places around here than there are in a lot of the countries I've been to. It's all about your opinion, I
100%.
suppose.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. So yeah, that's cool. Well, we should travel together. Or I don't know, do something exciting. That'd be fun.
That'd be fantastic.
Um,
I mean, you go on some great adventures, Kenny. You're going off and doing talks in other countries and stuff. That must be an incredible experience for you. And man, the people you get to meet and like-minded people too, but from different cultures. That's cool.
that Jen and I spent a day. So we spent the it was a 3-day conference. I spoke on whatever day it was, and then we had a day off before we went to Mallorca. And we hung out. We were fortunate to become good friends with some of the Swedes, and they took us on the most incredible but exhausting day. Like we did everything. They showed us all. We did like the tour, like the local tour with those, and it was I'll never forget that day. And I was so tired. I was just ready to move on. I was looking forward to the vacation we had in Mallorca, and I was kind of like, just maybe we'll just go to the hotel and just pack up for the next leg. And that was the we jumped in a fjord and then did the sauna and like we went to all the restaurants. We saw the castles with them. They told us all this. It was just something, again, I'll never ever forget. And we have a handful of those experiences because of the fact that you just do it different. So
Yeah, and you did it. You didn't go back to your hotel, and you have those memories now. Like you wouldn't have memories of packing in your hotel room, you know?
no, no, nope, not at all, not at all. Well, Matt, I know I could probably keep you going we should probably just do this, I don't know, once a week until we exhaust all your stories, but we might still go for years.
I told you the good ones.
Yeah, right. I don't think that's true. But I know you probably got to get going. And, but yeah, now I'm just even more piqued to hear more. So thanks for doing this, man.
Very cool, Kenny. I look forward to seeing you at the gym and having more chats, man. Thanks so much for the time today. It
Yeah.
was great talking to you. I think
Yeah.
like we chat every now and then, but this is definitely our longest conversation in the 5 years that I've been at your gym.
Agreed. Well, now that's just opened the floodgates. So I'm excited to do more. And you're probably going to have a lot of time now explaining this to other people and telling more stories in this. So when I walk in at 6 a.m. and everyone's just huddled around you, no one's doing anything fitness wise.
So there
I'll know why.
The wind was blowing.
Exactly. All right, buddy. Well, thanks again.
Thanks so much for the time, Kenny.
Yeah, you too.
Great talking to you. Take
All right. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed the heck out of that, and I would love to do that again with him, probably multiple times. If you listen to that and decided you want to be more like Matt, well, I don't know, go live on a boat and become a chef, etc. But if you want to become him in the fitness sense and you have not yet started at our gym, please send me an email, kenny@sandpointstrength.com, and I will get you all squared away on the beginning of your new fitness journey.